Hello and welcome to Westmonster Uncensored with me, your host for today, Patrick Christie's. As you can see, I am flying solo. My co-pilot, Michael Heaver, is off because he was up all night covering the local elections. What a snooze fest that was, by the way. Not his coverage, of course, the whole thing. But look, there really is only one place that I wanted to start today, and I wanted to engage with you on a discussion involving the following. The EU, the migrant crisis. Have we finally hit a breaking point? You guys seem to think so because we ran a poll at the top of the show, and so far, last time I checked, it looked like a rugby score. About 240 of you were saying that you do think we've reached a breaking point, and I think 3 people, all of whom I would like to meet, say that we have not reached a breaking point. Some of your comments piling in already. Rosie Skeet says, yes, definitely. Cannot see how the powers that be cannot see this madness. Christine Killick, thank you very much for getting in touch. Christine says, it has reached a breaking point and we will soon feel the aftermath. So as always, guys, this is an interactive show. I actually do care about what you think, believe it or not. So please do pile in with your comments. Now, there is a very good reason why I've chosen this topic today, and we're going to have a little look around Europe together. So, first off, the Greek island of Lesbos. As you can see from the story that's on your screen there, the Greeks have definitely finally hit breaking point. We all know the Greek islands have been a big target for migrants entering largely across the water from Turkey. And now the locals are really getting up in arms about it. So already, the number of migrants living on the island of Lesbos are a third of the population on the island, which is obviously a massive change for people to have to deal with. And the number of crossings from Turkey has increased by 17% in the last 4 or 5 weeks. The locals have had enough. Their PM, Alexis Tsipras, was paying them a nice little courtesy call, and the public took to the streets. I think we've got a little video to show you of some of the carnage, I suppose, or civil unrest, you could call it, that went on there. So this is locals up in arms protesting their Prime Minister at the fact that the government's policy seems to be allowing a lot of these migrants to come, and they say it's damaging their quality of life, and it is now leading to civil unrest. So, as we can also see there, there's obviously a lot of people up in arms. Now, I wonder whether people of Lesbos really, when they thought, oh, well, let's join the EU, and the Greek people as a whole, did they really think that this was going to happen? I mean, it's absolutely crackers what's been going on there. And, the thing is, I think they've got it a little bit wrong with the way they're going about this. They're protesting their own Prime Minister's response to the migrant crisis. They seem to be misunderstanding the fact their Greek Prime Minister is about as powerful as me. Why? Because Brussels has got his economy by the proverbial knackers. And they dictate the migrant policy, don't they? So here's this poor bloke, Alexis Tsipras, who's having his bus shaken by all these rabid locals who are rightly so quite up in arms about what's going on there. And actually, it's the EU's fault, isn't it? Isn't it? Because they dictate the migrant policy. If the Greek PM deviates from that, well, his country goes bankrupt, doesn't it? Pretty much. That's the way Brussels works. And this seems to be the case now, is what happens when you have the centralisation of power in an overarching superstate, a la the European Union, everybody's favourite superstate, of course. When the people that are on the periphery, the islanders on Lesbos, or the islanders on Lampedusa in Italy, their quality of life doesn't seem to matter to the people in the central powers that be in Brussels. The people who, crucially, don't live on the island of Lesbos. They don't live on the island of Lampedusa. So they don't have to deal with the brunt of it. Now, my concern here is that, as we've seen from that video, there is a very volatile situation going on in Lesbos. Now, my concern is that we are potentially just one incident away from out-and-out public violence. Let's just say, hypothetically, there's a scuffle or a skirmish, the same thing that you will see outside Wetherspoons most Saturday nights, but unfortunately it involves a migrant and a local. And let's just say, unfortunately, that local comes off worse. Let's just say maybe he dies or she dies. Now, we have seen the tensions there about to boil over already. It would only take one incident like that for the whole thing to blow wide open, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to come and go to some of your comments now. So, Marcus Fu, regular on the show, says, yes, we have reached breaking point. Kay Gibson, civil unrest will always be a consequence of the politicians ignoring the people. And that's what it feels a bit like here, doesn't it? The politicians have really ignored the people. Now, we're going to move on now, because that's one element of Europe. That's the islands, the Greek islands. This is one of the reasons why I say maybe we are about to reach a breaking point. Let's just move over now to Paris, where there has been a massive infringement on people's quality of lives. The Grand Paris race has been cancelled because too many migrants or refugees are camping along the route, so people can't get through. This is central Paris, this is Emmanuel Macron's stomping ground. This is supposed to be the epicenter of all things cultural and intellectual on mainland Europe, and, we can't even run a race, can we now? So here we go. This is an interesting thing that's been going on there, and I really do think, what is the end game here? Because I've got a quote for you from one of the organisers of this race, and this should be slightly worrying to everyone. His quote was, "These makeshift camps are growing and expanding day by day. According to the most recent estimates, in the coming weeks, they will bring together more than 2,500 refugees." He said it is impossible, unthinkable to cross these camps, and the passage would be impossible, so he's had to cancel the race. Now, the people of Paris and France have obviously borne more of a brunt of the migrant crisis than we have seen here in Britain. But they now must surely be about to start reaching a breaking point. If you suddenly can't drive through parts of your city, you can't walk through parts of your city at night, things like this, like a big run, a big event like this, has to be cancelled because of it. When it really starts impacting on people's quality of lives, that's normally when you start to see the civil unrest mount again. And so I think it's fair enough to ask, are we on the brink of that? Marcus Fu again just says Macron was too busy lecturing Australia on the Pacific Islands. I think it's a reference to the environment there, to actually get his own house in order. April Morris has been in touch. Thank you very much, April, saying, "I think it's about time all the leaders of these countries put an end to illegal immigration. We cannot go on like this." And this is the point I'm making. How much longer can these people really tolerate it? So we've seen it there in Greece. Now we've seen it there in France. But now we're going to just meander along, slightly cross the border into Germany. So a bit of a shocking story this. 150 migrants forcibly prevented the deportation of a failed asylum seeker. Now, it's actually quite novel that Germany has decided to deport one of them, considering that 70% of people scheduled for deportation in Germany have not been deported. So there was one bloke here who was on his way back to wherever he came from, and police were forced to abort the deportation of this failed asylum seeker because around 150 migrants surrounded the police car where this bloke was in, and one of them, and this is an interesting element to this story, one of them came to act as the negotiator, the local media were calling him. It seems like a bloke holding a ransom note to me, as far as I'm concerned, because he's basically told the police, look, if you don't let this bloke go in 2 minutes, we are going to storm the police car and we're going to storm this detention centre. So what do you think the police did? Well, they unlocked the bloke's handcuffs and set him free, didn't they? Now, this is worrying, isn't it? Because it does show now a total loss of control, doesn't it, of course? But it also shows a slightly worrying turn in violence, or aggression, I should say, on behalf of the migrant communities, or the asylum seeker communities, with regards to locals. And this is something that we're not just seeing in Germany. And by the way, look, I don't want it to come across at all that I'm saying that all of these migrants are violent, this, that and the other. No, not at all. But when you see an instance of violence like this with your own eyes, and you see it happening more regularly, there really is only one thing you can say, which is it is increasing. Now, that isn't just happening in Germany, where we are seeing an increase in aggression and violence. We are seeing it as well in Spain. So if we have a video, I believe, that we can show you of some of the incidents that have been happening in Spain. As you can see, this is on a Spanish enclave, and the migrants have managed to get over the fences and the border fences. They've had enough of standing on the other side of those fences, and fair enough, I suppose, really, and they've got over and they're in. And then crucially, what happens then? Well, you're in Europe, aren't you? You are in the European Union, and therefore you have free movement throughout. And as you can see, they are obviously very happy about it. And also, fair play, because actually if I'd made the type of journey that they had made, I'm sure I'd be pretty bloody happy as well, frankly. But this is a worrying thing, that the security services clearly can't cope. Now, the reason why I'm pulling all these together is what I hope I've maybe demonstrated, there is that we are seeing civil unrest now in parts of Europe as a direct result of the migrant crisis. We are seeing how in Paris it is impacting upon people's quality of lives, and we are seeing an increased level of aggression and violence as well. But don't just take my word for it that maybe, just maybe, we are on the brink of a bit of a blow-up here with regards to the migrant crisis, because we have another story to show you here that 63% of Germans think migrant integration hasn't worked, and that number shoots up to 73% in Sweden. Britain, actually, 55% of us, you lovely folks there, do think migrant integration has been successful. So fair play. But this just shows, isn't it? And in France as well, France, 64% think that it's not been successful. So actually you have these incidents going on now. There is public outcry, there is public uproar, and I do fear, genuinely fear, that we might be on the brink of actually hitting this breaking point. And what happens then, you know, because that does lead to presumably massive civil unrest. But also, how do we know that people have had enough? How can we tell? What's the one surefire way of telling that people have had enough? Well, it's elections, isn't it? And this is what happens across Europe now. You are seeing right across the continent anti-mass migration parties, whether or not you agree with the rights and wrongs of what they stand for, they are winning or they are doing very well, aren't they? The AfD in Germany, for example, in Austria, we've seen it. We all know about Hungary, and it's right across the continent. And Italy, of course, Italy is one of the latest ones. I think the latest round of elections there is just a direct choice between whatever variety of coalition you have, all of them are anti-mass migration. So this is why I'm making this overarching point that I think we might be about to see this bubble burst. But this is the final nail in the coffin for me, why I am nailed on that I think we will see this bubble burst. And that is because the European Union isn't actually dealing very well with the problem, is it? So 71% of failed asylum seekers still haven't been deported from Germany, as I've said, which is a ridiculously high number. So you end up with a situation where people are thinking, well, look, there's too much illegal immigration going on, our authorities can't cope, and then they're not deporting them as well. The European Union has seen fit, in its infinite wisdom, to give Turkey billions and billions and billions of pounds, not only to as an accession scheme, which we're going to come on to, but actually to help deal with the migrant crisis. So they're supposed to hold some of the migrants within their own borders and actually have a scheme with Greece where they will take some of them back. But of course this scheme isn't working because Greece and Turkey are on the brink of war. The Turkish President Erdogan, who is not known for his kindness, I suppose you could say, has threatened to break the arms and legs of the Greek Prime Minister. There's regular skirmishes on the Aegean Islands. So the EU is literally tossing money at Turkey to do absolutely nothing about the migrant crisis. But here's the interesting point. Here's why I think we really, really could be on the brink of a breaking point. The EU is paying Turkey billions to join the European Union, or to think about joining. Now, a couple of issues here. A couple of issues with Turkey joining is that obviously then the whole country would come into free movement of people, wouldn't it? Now, I just want to bring up a little map here for you of Turkey. You can see it there, Turkey, right there in the centre of your screen. Now, just imagine that being in the European Union, all of that landmass there would be subject to free movement of people, which means that anybody who really gets in could be subject to free movement of people. Now have a look at some of those countries that border Turkey. There's Syria, just down at the bottom, and I think we can all agree that's a bit of a mess. And then Iraq as well. We know, and thank you very much Tony Blair, of course, that is also awful. And so if those people can now make it across the border into Turkey, they can, as you can rightly see, you eagle-eyed viewers, they can then just make it into Central Europe. Now you might be thinking, oh, this is fine. This is fine, obviously, because I imagine that the border between Turkey and Syria is probably, like an 8-foot-tall, razor-high fence? I don't know. Well, I've been, actually, guys, and here's a picture of the border. So that's just a field, isn't it? So there you go. So just over there, you see that hill? That's Syria. And you see the bit just right behind my shoulder here? That's Turkey. So as you can see, there isn't a border. So, yeah, so there's not exactly the height of security, is it? It's not exactly Fort Knox. So, yes, there you go. So the reality of the situation is, if Turkey was to join the European Union, then it's not that hard. That, by the way, where I was stood there, is literally called the Jihadi Highway. So, I mean, that should be an eye-opener for you. So there are my points as to why the European Union might be edging closer to a bit of an implosion. So Tanis has been in touch. Now, I'm coming to some of your comments. Tanis has been in touch saying we need to build a wall too, sounding very, very Trump-like there, Tanis. I'm just going to scroll through some more of your notes. Lee Gill, once other EU countries see us exit and live perfectly normally afterwards, they will be queuing up to leave. Kay Gibson, thank you very much, Kay, for getting in touch, saying none of our political parties will deal with the issue of immigration, so who can the people vote for? And this is it. It's always a very good point, that. It always seems to be a case of it's always easier not to tackle immigration, isn't it? It's always easier not to. There's always something else. It's a bit less risky if you're a politician. So we end up in this situation where nobody talks about it. What happens when that situation arises? Well, you get the extremes on both sides of the argument shouting at each other, which isn't very good for democracy or society. And actually, nothing practically gets done. Well, guys, we have 220 odd of you watching live at the minute, so I'm very grateful that you are seeing my solo show here. Please do come to Westmonster and donate. Support us, help us keep bringing you the news that the mainstream media simply won't. So, yes, guys, we are now going to move away slightly from Europe's impending migrant crisis boom. And we are going to move on to a story that actually is very close to my heart, and it's with regards to Afghan interpreters. So, I would be very intrigued to see what you guys make of this. When we went to war in Afghanistan, we employed a lot of locals to act as interpreters. Now, these people weren't just sitting around in camps picking up radio feeds. No, a lot of these guys were on the front line in Helmand province, which is anyone with a brain or any kind of understanding of what went on there in Afghanistan will know. Helmand province was, of course, one of the most deadly areas to be. Absolute hellhole by all accounts. And these people were willing to risk the lives of themselves and the lives of their families to help British troops. Why do you think they did that? Well, that is because we promised them asylum, didn't we? And then the government's just gone, no, don't fancy that anymore. And then even the ones that have come here are now being asked to pay £2,500 to have their asylum renewed. And there's no guarantee their families will be allowed to come over. Now, when people talk about reducing immigration, when people talk about having strong borders and a strong immigration policy, you find me somebody that says that these Afghan interpreters shouldn't be granted indefinite asylum and right to remain on account of the fact that Britain owes them a national debt of gratitude, then I will show you an idiot. And so look, we really, really need to be, in my opinion, holding true to our word, because what kind of message does this send out about Britain to the rest of the world? We don't honour our promises, do we? We don't, if someone scratches our back, we don't scratch theirs. We don't, it's a matter of national pride, isn't it? National integrity. And what happens? Because history has a funny way of repeating itself, doesn't it? What happens the next time something kicks off in the Middle East, which, give it a couple of minutes. And so we go over there, do we? And then we say to these people, oh, come and give us a hand. We really need you to help us. And they go, well, yeah, but you didn't help those Afghan interpreters, did you? So actually, I don't really fancy it. And luckily for us, Defence Secretary Gavin Williamson has come to the rescue, it would seem, for now at least. He's broken away from government policy and he's told reporters, look, these Afghan migrants need to be able to stay. And my understanding is, I checked this out very late last night, so I'm not 100% sure. My understanding is that the Home Office has relented and is looking to let these people stay. So I really, really do think that is common sense. Chris Lane says it's the same with the burqas. Sorry, with the Gurkhas. Sorry, that was a slip of the tongue, wasn't it? Same with the Gurkhas. So all you need to do is look how our country treated the Gurkhas, and that is shocking. Kay Gibson, we owe these Afghan interpreters a duty of care. They have every right to be here. And this is it. And she's made the point. Is it because they're an easy target to meet deportation targets? A la Windrush. Is that ringing any bells? Look, I think it's a matter of common sense, isn't it, that these people should be allowed in the country, and most of you seem to agree with me, which is lovely as far as I'm concerned. Now, moving on to the local elections. Gosh, what an anticlimax that was. Hey, no, look, I'm only joking, but look, these local elections took place last night, and we're going to bring up the story that we did on that for you now. So it was a mixed bag for both Labour and the Tories. in a nutshell, I'm keen to know how you voted, by the way, guys. Please do let me know if you want. It's entirely private and confidential, of course, but if you tell me, I will, of course, tell the world. So please do come and let me know how you voted and maybe why as well. But look, it was a mixed bag. Labour were, I think, intending to do a lot better. Labour had this ambitious campaign called Unseat, which was run by, certainly helped massively by Owen Jones, who's obviously, it's not worked, has it? So basically, now the split seems to be relatively down the middle. The Tories will be quite happy because I think Theresa May was preparing for a bit of a bloodbath. And then bear in mind, guys, remember this, a couple of months ago, we talked about these local elections could cause a leadership contest for May if they went disastrously. But UKIP has actually all been wiped out. I think at the last reckoning, as far as I could see, they'd managed to get 2 councillors, down 92, so not a good return there for UKIP. My latest figures here, which may well have been updated now as more counts have come in, 1,433 councillors for Labour, 870 for the Tories, and obviously nobody really cares about the Lib Dems. So, the interesting thing in all this, and I think it's a key reason why Corbyn's Labour didn't have the surge to victory that they were expecting, is of course the rampant anti-Semitism claims that are going on in the Labour Party and Corbyn's, not inability, just lack of desire to bother to try to deal with it, I think. There's a fantastic tweet here from a chap called Daniel Sugarman, who says that Kersal in Salford, percentage-wise the most Jewish ward in the country, 40% of the voters being Jewish. Surprise, surprise. The Tories took it from Labour with a majority of 750. So, Jezza, there's no need to scratch your head. If people think that you might be a tad racist, they probably won't vote for you. And that is the message that we can all take from that. But let's see if I've had any comments from people saying who they voted for. You're all remaining very, very coy. Kay gives a no UKIP in my area. Moji Miles, there's no election here. There you go. So it would have been difficult, wouldn't it, for you, I imagine? No one's revealing who they voted for. This is interesting, guys. You're very, very coy. What's going on here? But yes, so one thing I thought was fantastic about... here we go. Someone, the Tories, Trish Haddon. Thank you very much. Stuck your head above the parapet there. Took one for the team. What I thought was interesting was the total lack of care that people had for these local elections. You might have had the misfortune of checking onto the BBC's website at some point last night, and they were basically running a story saying, here's everything you need to know about the local elections. Do you know what story was above that? A story about dogs taking selfies in polling stations. So that's how much people care, isn't it? I think that's fantastic. Some of those dogs were absolutely top draw, though, I must say. But look, guys, please don't forget to visit westmonster.com. You can sign up to our Red Alert email as well, which will come into your inbox once a day. Just 3 of the best, 3 bits of absolute non-stop gold. There's no bump, there's no rubbish. Just sign up there on our website and you will have the best of British news and news from around Europe directly into your inbox. It's an interesting one here. Richard Street. There was no UKIP or independent candidates here, so I had to vote Green. You didn't have to, Richard. All right, let's be honest. But anyway, if we're doing that, it's fantastic. So look, guys, yes, so that is basically the local election lowdown. And that is also why Michael Heaver isn't here. You may be missing him. You may be missing his fantastic ties, of course. His ties always cause a stir. He's been a busy boy. He was on Sky News all night last night, putting in a shift. But look, one thing I think that showed us with this local election, a point I would like to make now, is, doesn't it just show that people are so rampantly uninfused by the state of British politics? You're being asked to choose between 2 parties who are deeply unpopular. You are being asked to choose which party do I think is least unpopular compared to the other one, which is not a great situation, is it? It's 2 parties led by kind of relatively tired people running out of touch, tired policies that seem to patronise us with these endless sound bites. Who remembers Strong and Stable? I think we all do. I wake up sometimes at night screaming, strong and stable, as I'm sure Theresa May does. But actually, isn't it time maybe we had a modern party, maybe a new party, dare I say, a new vision for modern times that isn't afraid to be a little bit radical, isn't afraid to be a bit determined, and actually engage with people, as opposed to, in the case of Theresa May, looking physically terrified at the thought of human contact. So, anyway, moving on from local elections, we are going to start talking to you now about Brexit, which I think is possibly your favourite topic. There's a story that's broken today or late last night that Britain might not vote to leave the customs union until 2020. Sorry, Britain might not exit the customs union, not vote to exit. We have already done that, of course. Might not exit the customs union until 2023. Apparently what's happened here is a classic case of, you've guessed it, civil servants getting in touch with some ministers around a table and just explaining to them why the will of the people can't be enforced. So we've had cabinet ministers have been warned that it may not be possible for the UK to leave the customs union until 2023 because the technology just isn't ready. Right, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, it does seem like there'll be, between now and then, there'll have been 7 different new models of FIFA made. Now, if they've got the technology to do that, I dare say that in that case of time, we can pool our collective resources as a nation and have the technology that we leave the EU. I must say, actually, the technology, as far as I'm concerned, to leave the EU just seems, have you got 2 feet? Can you walk away? Yes, there we go. According to the Telegraph, senior civil servants have told a cabinet subcommittee that because technology to operate borders is so complex, it may take another 5 years before it's ready. Call me old-fashioned here, but the technology that could be used to control borders could be human beings, couldn't it? Maybe. And maybe if you invested in that and actually had some real-life human beings patrolling a border, or I don't know, maybe a fence or something, then that would seemingly work. But look, alas, that's why I don't work in the civil service, because I actually like to get things done. So there we go. That is the latest on Brexit. Let us know what you think about that, actually. Is that something that's acceptable? Is it Helen Morris? It's turning into a farce. Mandy Carter, walk away. Oh, and Jackie Redpath. I've not seen your name pop up on our streams before, so hello and welcome, Jackie. Totally agree with you. A new party would be a great one. That's for British people, not the rest of the world. So there you go. That's interesting. Maybe I should start one. What do you reckon? Me and Jacob Rees-Mogg. If Mogg won't join, I could just have like a puppet of Jacob Rees-Mogg. I'm pretty sure that'll get more votes than Theresa May anyway. And here we go. So, Ronnie Rudel. I really hope that's your real name. Anyway, Ronnie Rudel. Good old traditional methods are best. Fences and armed guards. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I just find it absolutely baffling that we have to come up with this revolutionary AI technology to patrol a border. We are an island, for a start. So, I mean, we've got a bit of a gift there. That should be a bit easier. And manpower. At the same time, you're giving people jobs, you're empowering people, you're providing confidence in people. I refuse to believe that it has to take us until 2023 to come out of the customs union. There is also another worrying article today, if you are a Brexit backer, that Theresa May might be putting off a vote on Parliament on customs union membership being on the table during Brexit negotiations because she fears that she might lose that vote. Which is worrying as far as I'm concerned, because, all right, look, I didn't want her to lose the vote, so I understand that it's possibly for the best that she's not gone to the Commons. But the other thing that really bothers me is, at what point do we just start losing faith in the whole thing? At what point does it become easier for us to just do an about turn than it is to actually enact this policy? Is she waiting and waiting and waiting for a time that isn't ever really going to exist? And yes, so now there was just before I finish on a bit of Brexit good news. I've got a little scoop here for you, and I wanted to see what you guys make of this. I always like to pull a little rabbit out of a hat, a bit like George Osborne at the start of a budget, but significantly less smarmy. So, local elections. We've had to show ID for the first time, haven't we, in some areas. Now, people seem to think this is an odd idea. This is an odd move. I don't get it. I don't get why they think that. If I have to show an ID to get into a Wetherspoons on a Saturday night, I should have to show one to vote. Now, some people are kicking off. Funnily enough, they seem to be on the left. They're kicking off and they're saying, well, this is an infringement, isn't it? You shouldn't have to show ID to vote. Why do you think that they might not want to show ID to vote, I wonder? Do you think it's maybe because there's widespread voter fraud? Well, this is interesting, because what I have here is a little document that's wandered into the Westmonster office. It came in a brown envelope, as you can see, so you know it's good. And it's for the direct attention, and the direct attention only, private and confidential, of the Electoral Commission. Whoopsie. So, here we are. Of the 2.9 million applications to register to vote that were made between the announcement of the general election on 18th of April and the deadline to vote to register on the 22nd of May, 612,000 applications were sent on the last day alone. Now 70% of those were duplicates, right? And here we are, interesting. at the general election, the volume of last-minute applications became barely manageable. We could not verify any of these. We could not verify them. In fact, we couldn't verify 70% of these. 70%. So you do the maths. 612,000, what's 70% of that? That is enough to win a seat, isn't it? That is enough votes to actually have a massive impact at an election. There's a reason, people, why we need to show ID at the polling booth. There's a reason because there is widespread voter fraud going on. The government knows about it. The Electoral Commission knows about it. They haven't got the resources to handle it. And so we need to show ID. There you go. That's me off my soapbox. Now, for some Brexit good news, before the police come in and arrest me for showing you confidential material. The Polish ambassador, everyone's favourite Pole. Look at him. No, I hadn't heard of him either. Anyway, he's called Arkady Rajocki. Sorry for offending him by pronouncing his name that badly. But he has said that British and Polish relations post-Brexit will remain very good. He's given us assurances, and I've had an assurance he's a very powerful man. So I'm sure that's going to be absolutely fine. And it echoes the words of Polish-born Tory MP Daniel Kaczynski, regular on Westmonster, who you all know and love. He's come and said, actually, the reason why it'll be fine is because Poland might be about to leave as well, because they are a little bit fed up of the whole thing. So there we are. Some Brexit good news. Where Brexit Britain leads, other countries will follow, and we will have a strong relationship with them. So that, guys, I would like to say thank you very much for my first ever solo Westmonster flight. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing my Friday afternoon with you. I hope you have a cracking weekend, enjoy this lovely weather, and at risk of sounding a bit unprofessional, I'd like to wish my mother a very happy birthday. So there we go. Guys, thank you very much. Lynn Lawyer saying, well done, Patrick. Well done you, Lynn, for battling through what has been a tortuous 35 minutes for you, no doubt. But look, guys, thank you very much. Do visit Westmonster. Have a great weekend and take care.